A 5-year-old boy fell into the gorilla compound at Jersey Zoo this afternoon. Levan Merritt, on holiday in the island with his family, lost his balance while on the wall and fractured his skull and an arm in the fall. As he lay unconscious, the huge silverback male gorilla, Jambo, appeared to guard Levan.
That news story, and the pictures which went with it, caught the imagination of the world. It took just 1 minute of amateur videotape for this gentle giant to destroy the myth of the gorilla as a savage, aggressive animal. A myth that goes back to the 16th century. About 100 years ago, Frenchman Paul Duchaillu, who is believed to be the first European to face a gorilla in its natural surroundings, said of his encounter, it was a hellish dream creature of that hideous order, half man, half beast. Hollywood, of course, perpetuated the myth with King Kong, but Jambo dispelled it one summer day in 1986. Gorillas are among the few large animals to be found at Jersey Zoo. This is part of a deliberate policy. Over 30 years ago, the founder of the zoo and the Jersey Wildlife Preservation Trust, the late Gerald Durrell, thought very deeply about what was going on in the zoo world.
I realized that most zoos, in fact, were going in for spectacular animals. You know, if they had elephants, they had rhinoceros, they had giraffe, they had all these things. And yet there were a whole mass of smaller creatures which needed help, which were not crowd pullers. And I felt sorry for them. They were the sort of small and ugly ones which were being pushed aside. Nobody took any interest in them. So I decided they needed a bit of help.
There was a need for a certain amount of crowd pulling in order to make money by attracting people through the gates. Running a zoo has never been cheap, and funds would not stretch to buying a gorilla.
So I phoned up various people on the island here, and I said, would you like to buy a piece of gorilla? You know, an arm or a leg or a head or something like that. And they were so amused by this approach that I managed to raise the money to buy her, and she was the founding member of our gorilla troupe, which is now so enormously successful.
So Npongo, a lowland gorilla from West Africa, arrived as a 2-year-old in 1959. She was an orphan born in the wild. She spent her early days in Gerald Durrell's flat at the zoo. Obviously, that arrangement, happy as it was for everyone, couldn't continue. Npongo needed to be with other gorillas and eventually breed. Nandi, another wild-born western lowland gorilla, was bought as a companion and a mate for Npongo. Perhaps the sexing of animals wasn't an exact science in those days, because Nandi was also a female. However, all turned out well. Eventually, both females became excellent mothers. There was little point in spending more money to acquire a male until Npongo and Nandi were mature enough to breed. So it was 1972 before Jambo arrived in Jersey from Basel Zoo, where he was born 11 years earlier. He was accompanied by the director of Basel Zoo.
We bred our first gorilla in '59, and this was Goma. She was not accepted by her mother, and so we had to raise her in our house. She was our first daughter. We had only boys before.
How long was she in the house with you?
Oh, we had her in the house for about 2 years, and then we got, when she was 1 year old, we got a little gorilla about the same age, and we brought those then, after having them both in our house, to the ape house.
With your first one, was this the first occasion that the gorillas had been bred in captivity?
It was the first in Europe, the second in the world.